Hey everybody, this is Eric from Support Adventure, and in this video I'm going to talk about the difference between working for a UK or US IT support company, an MSP. So we run a staffing company and we find people from all over the world and we contract them to work for these companies in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. And I've definitely noticed that there's a big difference between the companies that we work with in the US and in the UK in general, in terms of the practices that they adopt, the attitudes that they have, and the opportunities that they provide people. So it's very important to notice. This is kind of a video that I want to share with a lot of the people in Europe and Africa that are applying to work with us, who are trying to make the decision about business hours. Because if you're in Europe or Africa, it's really nice to have that time difference with the UK of like 1 or 2 hours. And this makes a lot of people say that they're only available for the UK shift. They only want to work with the UK business hours, so they're done by like 6 or 7 p.m. their time. And then on the other hand, we've had a lot of people, specifically from South Africa, basically say, no, I'd actually prefer to work the US shift. 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. works great for me because, well, you know, I go out and do my stuff, then I come home and I work. I guess it's because the European lifestyle is a bit different and you don't really go for a walk in the evening in Africa the same way you would stroll down the city center of a European city. It's a different lifestyle. So yeah, the first thing is business hours. You really need to decide which business hours are going to work for you. Obviously, if you're in Latin America, working your daytime, thus the US business hours, it's going to work out a lot better for you than if you're going to be working your early mornings, having to wake up at 4 a.m. to work with Europe. That's obvious, right? But yeah, if you're from Europe or Africa, it might be a deterrent for the US contracts because you want to sort of like just work in your daytime. So business hours is a big thing. But what you have to look at, if you're trying to find a great opportunity as quickly as possible and you exclude the US from what you're considering, ultimately you're going to have a fraction of the opportunities that you would have if you were to be open to working the US shift. Now this is a few different things. Basically, the first thing is that the US just has about 3 or 4 times as many people as the UK, therefore 3 to 4 times as many companies that want to hire you. And it's also a much more competitive job market where basically, I mean, they're hurting for people. If you're a smart IT technician, and you've got a proven track record of working in the IT support industry, yeah, chances are that there's going to be like opportunities for you, specifically in the US. In the UK, it's a smaller market, and they're much more sort of like regional in the way that they look at jobs and stuff like that. There's different accents in different parts of the countries, and they're a little bit more skeptical about outsourcing internationally for remote work. Less so than they were a little while ago, but they still are skeptical. And I would say the south of England is much more open-minded to this than the north of England, which is typically more insular. But the south has like more, like London is a very global city where, yeah, there's people from all over the world, so therefore having someone with an accent that sounds like they aren't from there is not a big deal at all. Yeah, especially Eastern European and South African accents, for example, they're everywhere in the UK. So yeah, the economy strength and wages, this is a really big thing that you want to look at with both countries. You can make a lot more money if you work for an American IT company. Wages in America are higher. The amount of success our clients have in billing their clients is a lot higher. There's a general more free-flowing attitude towards money, and they have to pay a lot more for local talent, so you are able to negotiate yourself a higher wage in the UK. And basically, I'd say that if money is your main motivator, find a way to work for the US because, well, if you get in there and you show your value and you show yourself as a star player in their MSP and you go back and you renegotiate your contract, yeah, you can easily add some G's to your monthly wage stack. So think about that. Whereas in the UK, if you look at the average wages in London for IT support, and you look at the average wages in New York City for IT support, I think you'll see a very big difference. And note that in working internationally, in being in another country, in looking to other places to outsource, people are trying to save money. So if you go and ask for the exact same wage that people in the States get, it's probably not going to work because they'd rather just hire someone locally. But then again, who knows? I mean, it is what it is. We have our standard rates that we offer people at, and those are meant to give people a very good living compared to local jobs in their country where they're living. So yeah, definitely very important to note that the US has much higher wages. Cultural differences. Now, this is something that so I would say, yeah, if you're from a place like South Africa, or let's say Eastern Europe, let's say Serbia or Bosnia, or let's say Poland or stuff like that, I would say that you will find that the US working culture and the UK culture are more alike than they are like your country. As I always say, there's like countries for business and there's countries for pleasure, meaning that I'm in Thailand right now, I much prefer living in a country like this, or Serbia where I live a lot, or Mexico, so on and so forth. Live in a country like that, where life is sort of like free and easy and like people are relaxed, than living in these countries like the UK and US. But ultimately, I really do also like the business culture of US and the whole Anglo-Saxon world much more than I like the business culture in these more developing countries. And South Africa is an edge case of the Anglo-Saxon world, because I find that their business practices do resemble a lot more stuff that you would find in Eastern Europe than you will find in the UK and US. I mean, I'm talking about bosses that are operating with a scarcity mentality, trying to squeeze as much out of the workers as possible for as little wage as possible. That's what you'll have in South Africa. We hear time and time again, and that's certainly what you have in Eastern Europe. So Eastern Europe, South Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, good for pleasure. US, UK, Australia, Canada, etc., Ireland, good for business. It's a spectrum, but there's a difference between, let's say, the UK and Ireland's culture. Between even those two, there's a difference, but as a whole, the whole British Isles culture and the North American culture, Canada, US. I would say Canada is on a spectrum culturally between the British Isles and the US. So it's a spectrum, folks. But if I'm going to generalize US and UK, basically I would say that the US has a much more business-oriented, results-oriented, efficiency-oriented culture that leads to the sort of good economy that I talked about previously. So what does this mean? Americans are all about getting it done, all about finding the best way to get it done, all about finding the most efficient way to get it done, whereas British people are a lot more social-oriented in the way that they run their businesses. They're more about having a good vibe with their clients and stuff like that. Yeah, there's lots of stressed out, aggressive people in London who will call you up on the help desk. But yeah, it's a more social culture in the UK, which means that they will go more towards inefficient business models, like having an MSP where the phone rings on every technician's phone when somebody calls, and somebody's going to answer it within 60 seconds because that's what they promise the clients, because the clients want to call up and basically talk to someone immediately because they have that social aspect of their culture and they want to talk to someone, have a nice chat and stuff like that, and that's how they want to get their emails. They want to get their support requests answered. Whereas in the US, I mean, it's fine. It's more common that most of the MSPs get tickets via email or filtered through a dispatcher who picks up the calls or a call answering service, and then the technicians call them back when they can. I am much more for the dispatch model, and we are constantly running into UK MSPs that have this technicians answers the phone model, which leads to a chaotic environment, leads to a really sort of like stressful working position when you're trying to focus on an issue and the phone rings, you're expected to answer it and talk to someone else, and everybody's, oh, hi, how it's going, wants to talk a lot, and what we want to see mostly is technicians getting positions where they can get their work done and help as many people as possible in a focused way, one ticket after another, rather than being interrupted all the time. Also, UK businesses are much more into like chat and banter with the colleagues. Overall, it's just a much more social culture in terms of the little sort of social lubricants like small talk, like humor on the job. Everything in the UK work culture is sort of drenched with humor and irony. And it's very pleasant to work in, but if you actually want to be in a place where things are organized for efficiency, organized so that you can do your job the best as possible, the US is definitely a much better option. So yeah, the UK doesn't actually follow a lot of the best practices that we urge people in our company's Support Adventure to use when setting up the service desk and the way that staff are operating on it, such as having a dispatcher, such as having a formalized escalation procedure, and such as really putting most of the stuff on notes, ticket notes, and following good procedure in terms of how to work on the ticket, good documentation, rather than just asking your colleagues about that. So yeah, the next thing is the work ethic. Yeah, Americans are so hardworking. They've got that almost German work ethic, which is like, we must be super efficient, we must get stuff, we must be the best, it's, yeah, maybe a bit like robotic compared to the UK, who are more about having a nice time at work, taking it easy and getting stuff done at a slow pace. But if you are a high achiever, then basically you're going to prefer the American coworkers in a lot of cases. I mean, there's a range of different types of organizations in America, but if you get one that's really well managed, they figured out how to make people comfortable to do lots of great hard work. Whereas the UK businesses have just sort of found out how to keep people kind of comfortable so that they can do work, if that makes sense based on the other things I said. Last but not least, American companies, MSPs, can be a lot bigger. There's a thing in America about going big. Go big or go home is an expression they use a lot. And in the UK, you don't really have that. In the UK, you're sort of like, there's a definitely much more defined social class system. There's definitely a much more defined distrust of large businesses, authorities, and stuff like that. And you'll find that Americans have this, let's scale this thing, let's go huge, let's 10x and stuff like that. Whereas UK business is like, I'm doing well, it's fine, we're just gonna stay where we are in our sort of like in our little bubble, social class, in our little business. It's great if it grows, but let's not rock the boat too much. Let's keep things the way they are. That's typically the attitude of the UK clients. So if you really want to be a part of an organization that does everything it can to make things as big as possible and as awesome as possible, and really hold everybody accountable to being awesome, then if you find a great MSP in America, it's much more easily achieved than an MSP in the UK. So that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this cultural comparison between IT support companies in the UK and US. And if you're going to work with either, it's probably going to be a lot better than if you try to get a job locally in Eastern Europe, Africa, Asia, Latin America, because the English-speaking work culture is among the best in the world. And it's super accessible if you have the social skills and the work ethic and sort of intelligence and the ability to get things done. Both are super successful as industries. The countries are economically both powerhouses, and yeah, other countries like Canada, Ireland, and Australia are kind of like hybrids of these different things that I described in this video. Ireland is, I think, the most relaxed. If you want a job in Ireland, it will be the most relaxed, but all the others, yeah, London is definitely business culture, business center, New York, LA, Toronto, Sydney. These are all places that have evolved to have great business culture. So you can't go wrong working for any of these companies. But if you want the best opportunities, as I said in this video, go with the US clients. They're my favorite to work with because there's just a lot less BS. So thanks a lot, everybody. This has been my comparison, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Apply to work with our company if you think you've got what it takes to be a great IT technician, and yeah, it can be a long process to find a position, but we want to find something that will last for years, and that's why we put so much care into finding the right clients and finding you possibly the right candidates for them. So thanks a lot. This is Eric from Support Adventure. I'll catch you later.